All right, thank you all for attending. This is the cryptography working group for CycloneDX. Nicholas, I'm going to pass it to you because I saw that you had been working on that one pull request for the group.
Yes, that's true. Thank you, Steve. So I think last time we talked about that blue. Thank you, Steve, for creating the issue. That's definitely a good thing. We can also go over that if we want to. From my side, I just added the changes we discussed last time to the schema. And I have one or two things I would like to discuss about them, or about those changes. And then I actually asked Basil to join explicitly also, but I think you would have also joined without asking, especially to get some more information about the certificate extensions and how we solve that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm also planning to attend again. So just had, was kind of a short break over the Christmas season. So, but yeah, now back on C-bombs.
Nice.
Nice. So let me quickly share the changes. I hope I can show them in the GitHub UI. Makes more sense, I guess. Okay, so what we discussed are the certificate states. I took the structure from the life cycle so that we have predefined states and the capability to add custom states if we want to. Those are the predefined states that should match the one that Juan, you presented in the in your draft. If not, then we should definitely discuss that. And I also tried to find a description for all those values that should be checked too, if that makes sense. I also added the dates related to those dates, except the first one. So basically, all the date strings are similar to the strings we have, or the keys basically we have also in the related crypto materials. And so I thought it makes sense also to keep the creation date and not have the pre-activation date. I don't know if that's confusing, if we should change that to having a pre-activation date. Then we would have pre-activation date in the certificate and a creation date in the related crypto materials for keys. Or if we should keep the key basically, so the key of these objects consistent and have in both properties the same creation date key for the first date of the states, if that makes sense.
For me, it's clear, but maybe in the description you can add a note indicating that it is referred to the pre-active state or something like that. Link the description or the date to the state.
Yes, that's a good point.
Does it mean that we duplicate the same attributes in related key material and certificate?
I think it's not 100% duplicated, but we do have here the creation date, activation date, update date, and expiration date. And I think we also got those from the standard, from the phases or the changes from some. I don't know where we got it actually from, but I think we had it from some reference. The naming, and for the certificate we would have then also activation date, but then deactivation date, revocation date, and destruction date, which is kind of different things, except the first one, which would be then pre-activation, if we would keep the same naming.
I thought maybe it might make sense to have a common object for these common attributes.
You mean, yeah, I was thinking about like extracting it, but basically it's just a string with a format tag, so it's not like a way to extract it without having less code, or with having less code. But I mean, sure, we can extract them with, but I think it wouldn't make too much sense because we would keep the same amount of code when, I think even more, I guess, because we have
Yeah,
the
I
reference
mean, this
and-
string would be just replaced by a reference. That's really all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
then
that
I
looks
would-
good. So that means that they can use the predefined states or actually name their own state.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, and there are those dates. What we don't have as a capability is if someone adds now custom states, to also add custom dates for those custom states. I don't know if we want to support that, but then we have to change the structure a little bit to have those dates related actually to the state object, I guess.
Yeah, I don't want to keep a running log. That's not really what CycloneDX is for.
Yeah.
I think what you have here makes a lot of sense, actually. That's my opinion.
Okay. Quan, would that also fit with your use case, or?
Yeah. I think I was thinking about it, and I think it covers. We can adapt to this naming for the dates, and it covers our use case perfectly.
Okay. Okay.
I had on my side a task to bring some descriptions for the dates, but I see you have already added those descriptions, and they seem perfectly fine.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I can update them if you think you have better ones. That's for sure. I just took the one we already had and just changed 2 or 3 things. So, yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. Yes, I just have to look what I changed. Next to that, yeah, the other thing was about, yes, so actually these are 2 things now, 2 things combined. I think it was about the references, that yes, there was here I had to have an array of references, algorithm reference, key reference, so using the bomb ref. And where are those changes now? Wait, find them. Okay, and there's another problem related to that, which I tried to put in the same kind of change, which is that not only it's useful to have more references than just one, but also that it wasn't that clear if you have the direct references to algorithms or keys inside those crypto properties, if they are used or just provided. So the change we made to the dependency types, they are not reflected if you use the internal kind of crypto bomb ref, which there's the greater question if we still want to keep those kind of internal references, because also this is the thing, if you don't parse it correctly, then you don't see those dependencies, which can be intended, but also could be also wrong. So I'm not 100% sure if we want to continue with those references. The idea was that normally you have like library and then the framework, and then, or the other way around, framework and then library and software component. And then you don't want to have the full kind of crypto tree underneath that. that's basically internal, like the TLS uses this algorithm and this key. That was, I guess, the idea behind that. But with that change of having internal references, we generated basically a sub-dependency tree. And I don't know if that is the way to go, because now we then would keep like updating that to the official dependency section, which I think is not a good thing for maintenance, but I'm not 100% sure. What do you think? Does it make, or didn't I
You're not
explain it
talking
correctly?
about like the places in those spec where we've got like algorithm refs, right?
So yes, those are this.
That's
Yes.
fine, right?
Yeah, that's what I wonder, because I mean, there was a request from another company or an input from a company that we are working with. They said, yeah, I wasn't sure how should I differentiate using the algorithm ref if the algorithm is provided or used. This is only possible if I use the dependencies from the outside, kind of, this CycloneDX component dependencies. But algorithm ref is also kind of a dependency, but without the capability of differentiating between provided and used. So to cover that, we could build the same mechanism that is used in the dependencies for components into this one, but that would be duplicating the same mechanism, and I think it's not nice for maintenance. And that's my kind of thought here. I'm not sure how to continue. We should remove the internal reference at all, but then we have the problem that, for example, with certificates, we can't differentiate between, for example, a public key reference or a signature algorithm reference, because then we have just references and used or depends on, basically, or provides and depends on the component hierarchy.
Yeah, I would maybe. I think the references that we have in cryptography are going to be really only applicable to cryptography. I mean, it's not really applicable to most software. It's not applicable to like AI models. Not applicable to hardware. Maybe what we do is we revisit the description for the provides and for the dependency as a whole. Revisit that dependency so that we're crystal clear on when people should use it and when people should use the native cryptography references.
Okay. But then from the capability point of view, we still have to kind of duplicate the same mechanism to support those differentiation in the native references.
Is there something that we can't represent today?
I don't know of a real good example, but it's maybe something, Basil, you can say if that makes sense. But there was kind of the idea of, yeah, but what if I have a subject key or subject public key reference here, where I just want to say it's there, but it's not used. In my sense, for this example, it doesn't make sense. But the idea is here, I only can say that there is a reference, but not if it is used or just provided. Maybe that is the case in a protocol or something where.
Well, I mean, this is the certificate properties.
Yes.
And let's see. So backing up, you want to know whether or not that certificate is used, because if you're using the certificate, then aren't you by nature then using the algorithm and the key that's part of that certificate? Okay.
Yes, that's also my understanding, but or maybe there's a better example. I don't know if we have
Well, I mean, you can have a service, for example, that depends on a certificate, right? You can do that today.
yes.
Right. So like if you got a service that listens over HTTPS, you can say, well, this service depends on this certificate. And by nature, because it depends on that certificate, then that algorithm and key would in fact be used, right?
Yes. Yes. That was actually not a good example. That's true. I don't know
Okay.
if there is an example that's we're looking a little bit to Basil. Maybe you can find one.
So basically look for a use case where you would need different dependency types inside a certificate.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, not certificate per se, just where we have references. Like for example, in the protocol where we do have an kind of this crypto array ref or crypto ref array where we can just add more algorithms as a dependency, like an internal dependency that this protocol is related to. And we do have that also if we look at Cypher Suite objects where we can list the algorithms that they actually use there. I think that's clear that they are actually used, but it could be, I don't know, if there are a list of Cypher Suites and you just want to say for this TLS connection, only this one was currently used, but the others are supported, then you can't say that currently in the CLON.
Yeah, I mean there with Cypher Suites, what you usually have, you have it's like a negotiation, right? Between the service here, TLS service, and the client. So you will actually offer more Cypher Suites that are in the end used. But if we describe just the protocol here, right, or this instance, then we cannot really say which one will be used by a service or by a client, let's say. Then it would be on the client side to specify that.
Yeah, I mean, the result of this discussion could also be that we have a clear understanding that we don't want to support those differentiation in the like internal references, because we say when you use it, then it basically means it's used.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure. I didn't had a good answer to the question that came from the other person. So
Yeah, but you say you had a use case basically from a person who had this ambiguity in one situation.
yeah, not a use case. He was just kind of explaining this ambiguity that he wasn't sure how to reflect the differentiation between use and provide when using the internal references without a use case. So it could be that there's no use case.
Thought that it's kind of it should be obvious, right? If we have these internal references, what it means, right? Okay, the Cypher Suites that are offered, yeah, that's the list of Cypher Suites that are offered, right? It's then in a certificate, right, you have algorithm references. Let's say the algorithm for the public key for the signature, and which probably have to think about if there is some ambiguity. I mean, when we defined it, I think then we didn't have the impression that there is the need to specify the dependency types or provides or uses already there. Over there.
I agree.
Yeah, we can think a bit about it and maybe revisit the occasions there.
One of the things that you can do today is, you can, for like the service, for example, and you can probably do it for the protocol because it's just a component. But for the service, what you can do is you can describe the configuration in CycloneDX. So we have a data component, and one of the types for data is, I think, configuration. And for example, if you wanted to describe these Cypher Suites that Nginx, for example, has enabled, you can actually include that entire configuration for Nginx in your CycloneDX bomb. Now, that's going to be very like specific operationally to what it is that, you know, you're describing. But, you know, like if we go down, my dilemma is that if we go down describing every single aspect of like TLS negotiation, then we also likely have to go down all the other rabbit holes, MQTT and all the other protocols that Bluetooth that theoretically you can describe as services in CycloneDX.
Yeah.
So I think figuring out what is the right level of granularity is going to be kind of important.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
is it in general the, let's say, goal of CycloneDX to be so granular, to go really to this, I mean, protocol specifics, or I don't know, there might be other cases like file types, or it could be described.
Yeah, I mean it's currently it's protocol agnostic, so it doesn't, you know, assume HTTP, for example. You know, any protocol that can be described over a URI, including radio telecommunications, right, can be a service in CycloneDX. So, we might want to consider, because I kind of see this as kind of an operational thing, right? If you deliver software, right, you deliver software, and maybe you're a software company, you deliver software, and that piece of software supports a dozen different cipher suites. The customer deploys that software, they configure their Nginx, whatever, to only use a subset of those cipher suites. As the software provider, you have no visibility into what is used and what's not. That's a configuration, operational configuration thing. Now we can either, well, I think we have three options. We could try to describe all the operational configuration at a granular level in CycloneDX, boiling the ocean, in my opinion. However, we could do that. We could rely on the existing configuration capabilities of CycloneDX, where, again, it's going to be very operational specific, right? You know, the Nginx config is different from like the Apache HTTP config, right? So it's going to be different, and you need to kind of know the context in order to make sense of it. Or, so that's supported today. Or, as a potential third option, you could externalize that configuration. And I think, do we support that today? I can't remember. Let's see. I think we do, but maybe we don't. Let's see. If I go to external references and types, is there a configuration? There is. So you could theoretically use an external reference to point to the configuration. And we've got two options there, right? You could specify like the URL to where you can find that Nginx config, or we could theoretically design a protocol specific type of configuration specification that would live outside of CycloneDX. So I think we have a lot of potential different avenues to pursue. It's just figuring out what's going to be most useful to most people to reduce the most risk.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think, yeah, this information about the configuration, plus the understanding that, or making it more explicit how we envision the references we have, these internal ones, how they should be used and interpreted. I think that should help to solve this problem, because I also don't think we should go too much into detail there and have like an internal dependency tree to represent all the edge cases that are possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Hi, Vanada.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great. Glad you could join us.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I was just stuck with meeting, so I joined late.
No worries.
So, actually, I'm doing a lot of research on C bombs these days. I'm writing something about it.
Nice.
So you'll see something coming soon.
Fantastic. Well, ping me and let me know.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Is that going to be on your employer's site or OWASP, or where's that going to
No,
live?
not on the employer side, not on the OWASP side. It's on the personal capacity, so that it can be read by everyone.
Nice. Okay. Looking
Nice.
forward to that.
Yeah, thank you. Even I can share with you once it's finalized and I have something concrete probably in a month or so that you can review it as well.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. So just to cover up the last thing I changed, and we were also talking about what is array for those references, and that's just an idea. I'm not sure if we want to do that way. I tried to make the schema a little bit more, say, to have more reusability. Because we have here in the protocol, the crypto ref, we have algorithm ref somewhere. We do have the in the certificate, the subject ref and the, how is it called? I forgot already. Subject,
yeah.
public key, and the certificate, signature. And though I created an object just down here, where we have an array of crypto refs, but you can also add a key to that. So basically you can say it's a public key represented. It's just a string, so it's not an enum in this case. It would be great if we would have the type enum extracted from the related crypto materials and have those kind of merged with the actual asset types, which we I think we decided in the beginning that we don't want to do it, but then we would be able to reuse it here. But in general, this would allow a little bit more flexibility on having multiple references to each certificate properties, algorithm properties, protocol properties, and provide a way to distinguish between what those references mean, if they are like a subject public key ref or a signature algorithm ref.
Okay. No, this is good.
Which would, for my opinion, then lead to the deprecation of the other refs we have all over the place, and just adding the other one, the new one, as a like a
Okay. So those would be deprecated.
That would be then my intention, having a deprecation.
Okay. Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, I know. We use we JSON schema. Yeah. We use draft 7 just because it was the most widely used at the time. Deprecated technically is not part of draft 7, but we use it in the spec anyway. So yeah, this is fine. We're actually potentially talking with the JSON schema folks because we have a number of challenges that, I mean, quite honestly, XML solved that 20 some odd years ago that JSON schema still does not support. So the unfortunate reality is that like once you get into like actual schema development and actual usage of the spec, JSON becomes painful at some point, just
Mhm.
because of a lot of the limitations. So we're on a side note, we're talking to potentially talking to the JSON schema folks, on a couple different things. But yeah, just know that, you know, deprecated, we use it in the spec. It violates the draft 7, but most parsers just ignore it and accept it anyway. It's kind of like what we use for the meta enum, because again, JSON schema cannot describe its enumerations, yet XML can. So we potentially violate drafts, or we violate all JSON schema versions at that point. And we just kind of ignore the warnings that the parsers will generate. So just FYI. But I like simplifying this and deprecating the things that are not useful.
You have a strategy for deprecation of removing it completely then in one of the upcoming releases?
Yeah, so we are going to concentrate on 1.7 this year. But at the exact same time, we're actually designing the CycloneDX 2.0 object model, which is the foundation for, so we have the Transparency Exchange API, which is a way to autonomously discover and share supply chain artifacts, such as S-bombs, C-bombs, BDRs, VEXs, etc. And they're, after talking with basically a lot of software producers, as well as potential consumers of like S-bombs and whatnot, most organizations actually don't want to provide the S-bombs, and most organizations actually don't want to consume them. It's too costly for them to do. What they want is the data. They want the intelligence. They want to be able to ask questions such as, does this piece of software use a vulnerable version of Log4Shell or of Log4j? And if so, is there anything I need to do about it? Right? That's what they want to know. And to be able to do that in a completely automated way. So part of what the Transparency Exchange API does is has this capability called insights. It's the ability to ask questions such as, give me the inventory of this piece of software. It's not an SBOM, it's an API response. Or, you know, again, ask questions. Hey, do you have a vulnerable version of X in your software? Or are you using this particular cryptographic algorithm? Right? That API is essentially what CycloneDX 2.0 is going to be. So simultaneously, while we're developing CycloneDX 1.7, which is primarily a file format, we're also designing CycloneDX 2.0 because the future is not file formats, it's APIs. And at the end of the day, the CycloneDX 2.0 object model is essentially what everyone is going to be consuming. And we are keeping most of the design decisions that we've previously made, like a highlight, stepping back from cryptography. We're keeping most of the design decisions, but there's a few things that are potentially on the chopping block that we want to fix. So that would be the time where all these deprecated things would be completely removed from the specification. Long-winded answer, sorry.
Yeah, thanks for the background.
Yeah.
So but the CycloneDX 2.0 will still, I mean, the core of it will still be like a JSON and XML schema definition, right?
It'll probably only be JSON at that point, because as part of the Transparency Exchange API, we're delivering an open API spec. So if we want people to start using it, they will be able to. They'll automatically be able to generate their consumption and production stubs directly from the API spec, and that's all obviously going to be JSON. Now, if we want to support XML, we've recently talked with, we are working with, we have one working group that we have right now is for patents. And there's a lot of, well, not a lot, but there is absolutely some demand for being able to describe patents in a CycloneDX bomb, especially for like M&A use cases and that sort of thing. We are talking with WIPO or WIPO, WIPO. It's the Worldwide International Patent Organization. They're a standards body. And they have a standard in which it's called ST96, which all patent offices around the world essentially use. And so that's hundreds of different patent offices around the globe. And it's XML. However, what they've done is instead of providing a JSON, they've actually formalized how you would actually convert, how you would represent this as JSON. So theoretically, what we could do is essentially just the opposite. Provide JSON only, because open API spec, and provide guidance in the form of essentially requirements that you could use to represent the exact same thing in XML without actually providing the XML schema. So that's being considered right now. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know if we're going to continue doing XML and protobuf. I do know that some organizations use XML because they have extensions, which is one of my complaints on it, and JSON schema is just not extensible by design, which is one of the things we're going to be talking to them about. So anyway, yeah, not sure yet.
Maybe also a question from my side quickly. The Exchange API, is that then a service from Cyclone that will be provided, or is it just a specification on how such a service would work?
It is a specification. It's going through all the ECMA standardization processes now. And we are having a hackathon at the end of May in Barcelona, which corresponds to OWASP Global Europe, which is being held again in Barcelona this year. So we're gathering like the dependency track folks. We're gathering like Espamify and a few other vendors. We're trying to get essentially a beta 1 of this API out by the end of this quarter. And that way it'll be ready for essentially rough field testing at that point to kind of prove what we think is going to work will actually work in the real world. Because this really hasn't been done before.
Yeah.
I mean, the sharing stuff is easy. It's the discovery and all that other stuff that kind of goes into it it hasn't been done. Not for this kind of use case anyway. So yeah, so that's kind of like the state of T right now, the Transparency Exchange API. And like I said, you know, the CycloneDX 2.0 model is essentially going to be the foundation for the insights part of that API. So when you ask it questions, that response is basically going to be Cyclone 2.0.
Nice.
Or at least provide the foundation for it, because it won't actually be 2.0 at that point. You get it, right? Yeah.
Okay. Think then we can switch to the certificate extensions.
Yeah.
Still having in mind that we have to standardize the algorithm names. Just saying it here quietly.
Yeah. I think we're gonna have to come to some kind of, I mean, I looked at that list that the other group put together, and it's basically just the output of a tool. Right?
Yep.
Okay, whatever. Realistically, we should have some kind of formal thing on how we actually name things rather than just randomly naming things. Including like case sensitivity, including like what is the order of the things that you put, for the algorithm, mode and everything else, hyphens versus underscores, just really basic stuff that we should probably standard and decide on as a group if we're going to start naming algorithms anyway.
If I'm there correct, but Basil would know that better than myself. Even those things, when we looked into the papers where the name was actually, defined, there was no common schema. It was Wild West. So
No, it causes some challenges. Like, people are using their own conventions, right, with underscores or dashes or whatever. Just one example recently. I mean, OpenSSL, they have a wider concept basically where you can implement your own version of an algorithm or your own algorithms and then plug it in as a plugin, and it has a name at the end, right? And so now like we have this project Open Quantum Safe that provided exactly one of these plugins, and it comes with some names, right, for the algorithms. And now OpenSSL also adds some versions of these algorithms, but with slight different naming.
Because of course they do, right?
Which all makes sense. Like if you have your naming convention, right? But one of the requirements at the moment is that all providers need to use the same naming for the same algorithm, otherwise things will break. So but I think realistically, if we come up with let's say a standard list of algorithm names, it will not mean that everyone will use this convention, right? Which
I mean, there's a lot of legacy stuff that exists. Like, I mean, the classic one that I'm aware of is the differences with what the Java runtime provides and what OpenSSL provides. They're almost the same, but not quite. I think the underscores or something are different and some other things.
Yeah, I think for the schema, the main point will be, or the main use will be that you don't have the ambiguity in the schema, right? So that people talking about talking about a certain algorithm will use the same names. Also, it might still have to be mapped to a different naming convention in certain protocols or libraries and so on.
I created a ticket to in GitHub, and I think I tagged you, Nicholas. But I created a ticket to discuss the both algorithm names, standardizing those, as well as the curve names. So that would be essentially two external lists of names along with all the associated metadata about them. So
yeah, it could be.
and we can, I mean, I think we have a couple different choices there, right? We could make that its own ECMA standard, independent of CycloneDX, so that others could theoretically use it as well, or we could keep it in Cyclone.
Yeah, I think that will be an interesting discussion.
Yeah.
And something that already is pressing on our feet. Is that the phrase you say in English? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Internally, because tool interoperability, it's already coming up. So yeah. So I already reached out to Basil before this call about the certificate extensions. I will just let you answer to the question, but I think the idea we had last time was to capture those, and we were unsure if they are X509 specific and if there are others that we want to capture that are of importance for other formats, if I recall correctly.
Mhm.
I will let you answer, Basil. Can you hear me, Basil?
Yep.
You go. I was just saying I let you answer because you wrote the thing to me, but I will not rephrase what you said. I would just let you answer, I guess. Better.
So, I mean, in general about like certificate extensions, I mean, the question is, which of those do we want to have, right? And what is there, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe I think the first question you had was kind of if there is, what types of extensions are there and what types of certificates, right? We already have, I think, enum of certificate types. And I think, yeah, I mean, the two main ones are X509, right, which will cover the most use cases yeah, for IT, basically. And then there is a second certificate type, it's CVC, so that's card verifiable certificates. That's more on things like smart cards, on the passports, right, e-passports. You have these kind of certificates, so it's more on the embedded world, but nevertheless, I think an important use case to cover that as well. And yeah, and yeah, for I mean, X509 has different certificate extensions, right? I mean, they are usually like classified. There are critical extensions and non-critical extensions, which means that if you have critical ones, if a client cannot parse them, it will fail, right? So those that need to be interpreted. And then there are some other non-critical extensions that can, yeah, be just ignored, right? If you happen to not understand it. So we might as well make a difference there, right? Because, I mean, there are proposals to include a non-critical extensions for making so-called hybrid certificates, where you have a classical algorithm like ECDSA or RSA, and a post-quantum one like the lithium MLDSA. And then the idea was that more or less to put, or yeah, the idea or what was done there was to put the signature of the quantum safe algorithm as a non-critical extension. So this, I mean, can also be proprietary things. So we might not want to go into too much depth there, right? Or it depends on the use case. And instead look at, you know, some standard extensions like, you know, things describing the key usage. Yeah, like extended key usage. I mean, like subject alternative name is also a certificate extension. I think we have it already there, I'm not sure. And then, yeah, there are so-called basic constraints, CRL distribution points, and so on. So we can propose a list of these extensions that could be added there. And yeah, and then
Do we want like an enumeration of what the extensions are? Do we want like individual fields for what the extensions, like the common ones, are? There's a lot of ways we could just do like a key value pair, which again, if the names of the extensions are not the same, you're gonna have a mismatch. How best should we handle that from a specification perspective?
would it be like, one option would be to make an object, right, with extension.
I think it should be, in any case, like an extensible object, because there are things that still under definition from the quantum perspective, and hybrid models and so on. There are still things that are not yet well defined, I think, and yeah, I think it may be worth to make this part extensible as well. Something that where you can add new fields or new elements.
From maybe asking from the use case perspective, Juan, what was your intention to capture those? So does it also go to the direction that Steve suggested? If, for example, you have just key value pairs with strings and not like predefined objects, and could be error prone, but more difficult, I guess, to parse. So what would be the ideal way to match your use case to represent it?
Not sure about that, but yeah, what we have done right now is a list of an array of key value pairs, and right now we are working with that. I don't know if there's a better way of doing it. To be honest, because as I said, it's something that it's still under definition.
Yeah.
From the hybridation or models of hybridation perspective. And there's still, we are not clear about which model are we going to use. So from the beginning, what we want is to try to be able to describe any model that comes up in the end.
And for your use case, you are looking at X509, right?
Yeah, we're working with X509, but hybrid models, as you said, use this extensions part to define certain things.
Yeah, would there be a way to, let's say, do both, to have a list of common extensions plus giving the option to add more, let's say, key value pairs? Would something like this make sense?
I mean, that would be the same as for the certificate states, where you have predefined and then the capability to add custom.
Yeah, I think we can possibly do both. Because I mean, Juan's right. I mean, we don't know what we don't know right now. I mean, it's ever evolving. But there are a lot of common extensions used, and we can capture that in the spec, and then leave it open for the things that are still kind of in flux.
Sounds good to me.
Now the next question to, I guess, Basil would be like, what are the extensions that we should support?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can start with the list that you have, right, already, that you capture as key value pairs. Yeah.
Do you want me to? We have the basic constraints, the key usage, the extended key usage, subject alternative name. I can pass a list because it's like 1, 2, 4, 6. It's like 10 properties.
Now, what about then? Are there going to be some extensions, and I don't know how it works on the embedded space, but are there going to be some extensions that are specific only to X509 and some that are basically common to 509 and what was it, CVC? Is that what you said it was?
I mean, they will have different names, right? But sometimes mean the same thing.
Okay.
So we put, I mean, for CVC, I mean, CVC is defined in a ISO standard, basically. And there is one specific use cases for readable travel documents. So that's a specification by the BSI in Germany. So they
Okay.
list common common extensions there that they use, and I think we could just add those as well, right? They
Yeah,
have
we've
certificate
got
identifier, certificate authority reference, public key, certificate holder reference, and yeah, a couple of more of them, and yeah, I think some of them match to same concepts of X509 certificates, but it might be still useful to have them explicitly, right? So that one can easily.
One of the guys on the CycloneDX team based in Germany. He's talked with BSI quite often, actually, not recently, but while they were developing that SBOM paper that they eventually published, I think the second version of that. So we were part of that design process and talking to them regularly. So being able to also support the things that they're specifically recommending, I think would be a good decision, in my opinion. Do we want to differentiate between the X509 extensions and the CVC extensions, or does it really matter?
If it doesn't matter, I would say we keep it together from a schema perspective, but if it matters.
Right. That say as a comment or description that this is for CVC, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, from our side, what we did is define it in the name of the extension at the beginning, X509 ext before the name of the extension to know that it's part of this block of extensions. But yeah, we really don't use CVC anywhere, so I don't have an opinion about it.
Yeah, I think it would make sense to have both because we explicitly list them under certificate type, and I think then we also have PEM, which is kind of just the encoding of it, right? Which is
right
orthogonal to the certificate properties in there.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I would have a question regarding that, because we do have, as you said already, the certificate extension as a field, which captures which captures basically the file extension or the encoding stuff. And I just added now, while we were discussing, just copy paste and change some things here, the certificate extensions. I don't know if there's a way to merge that together or if it are separate things, but because from the naming, they are kind of close together.
Yeah.
So they're like a little bit of understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the first one is more. I mean, extension is it more file extension?
File extension, right?
Yeah.
And the other one is metadata inside the certificate itself.
Yes. So they are actually separate things, and we can't merge them, if I'm understanding correctly. Just from the naming. Okay.
And also it's related, well, not related, but I think there's a misunderstanding maybe in the certificate format, because as far as I understand, PEM under are codifications of X509, that they are not different formats. In fact, they are just a different way of writing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant before. Like, I mean, of this list, it's basically X509 and CVC this defines the format with the attributes, right? In a standard. Yeah. The others are, as you said, like, codification or thing of that. You can encode X9 as a PEM or there, right? So maybe we can remove PEM and dir from there because we anyway have them and under certificate extension, which maybe should better be certificate file extension.
Yeah. I mean, no, my voice is gone. So we can't change it because it would break the schema. But I don't know if it's worth it to deprecate it and change the naming just for that. I don't know. Do you have an opinion there, Steve?
Well, I mean, we can these are just string fields. So, I mean, we can just be more explicit with our description and the examples that we kind of expect. Now for the certificate extension, and then of course we're going to have certificate extensions. That's kind of a problem. We can always deprecate certificate extension and rename it certificate of file extension so that it's less confusing. Because I'm dyslexic. Yeah, I'm going to look at one of them and just think it's something else. It's one character different, and it makes it. Yeah, they're not the same thing.
Yeah, so I think it's worth it deprecating it and changing the name.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I know we're over time, but I thought today was a really great call.
Yes.
So you're going to be joining us in the future then, Basil, again?
You're on mute.
Yes, I will try, yes, to join.
All right. Awesome. Very good. Well, thank you all for joining. Truly appreciate it. I'll get the recording up on YouTube later today. And have a great rest of your day.
You
Cheers.
too.
Thank you very much.
All right.
All right,
Bye.
thank
Cheers.
you.